Hello and welcome. Now, you're going to notice here inside of your ChatGPT that you have connected apps, and you want to understand those first before you get into agent mode because they really do expand what it is that you can do. I'm going to turn off connected apps so we can look at it again. And what you're going to do here is go to this area and you're going to go to connected apps. And what you want to do is you want to go to add sources and you want to go to connect more sources. Now, whatever sources you have not already connected, you'll see down here in browse connectors. For the sake of this session, these connectors have already been connected. So we've already connected ChatGPT to Canva. But if you had not connected ChatGPT to Canva, you can connect it in this area. Or let's say that what you have done is you've connected Canva to your chat GPT, but you don't like the connection. You can manage that connection here. You can disconnect it and connect it back. Same thing is going to be true with Dropbox. So if you see now that you can use agent mode with Dropbox, you can then use some of the content in Dropbox or you can manipulate things in Dropbox. We're going to see that there is information here inside of Google Calendar in agent mode. So when we connect all of these applications to ChatGPT, that means we're going to be able to work inside of ChatGPT, both to bring information in and to send information out to these locations. And you want to pay attention to what it says. So for example, if we look at Google Drive, it says that Google Drive can be used with deep research. It can be used in the agent mode. It can be used with file uploads. So in other words, anything that we have in Google Drive can be brought into a chat. Anything that we have in Google Drive can be used in agent mode. And so that means that we can push out information to agent mode. We can bring in information in agent mode. And then also deep research. You're going to see here that Microsoft OneDrive and Microsoft OneDrive Work, both of those are ways that we can bring information into a chat. And you see that there is no additional information there. That means it's just connected to ChatGPT so that we can bring information that we have into a chat. So instead of uploading files, we can upload those files directly from Microsoft OneDrive or from our Google Drive. Outlook Calendar, you'll see that we can bring that information into a chat. Deep research and agent mode. Same thing is true with Outlook email. Now, SharePoint is the interesting thing because SharePoint is information that we can bring in. Can't necessarily bring files from Microsoft OneDrive into ChatGPT, but you can bring information in through SharePoint. So we can go and get information and do research from within our Microsoft 365 account as long as we have SharePoint connected. And the same thing is going to be with Microsoft Teams. So we first want to look at how the connections work, because if you understand how the connections work, then you're going to be able to manipulate them inside of agent mode. So let's say that what I want to do is I want to have some information from my Google Drive. I'm going to connect Google Drive for this specific chat. Now again, let's take a look at what Google Drive does. So if I look at connected apps, I go look at the sources just to refresh our memories. We can use Google Drive with deep research, with agent mode, and we can bring files in through Google Drive. Okay, so here's a file that we have in our Google Drive. It's a PowerPoint presentation on servant leadership. Now, you wouldn't ordinarily do this. You wouldn't ordinarily look at the file that you're going to be using from Google Drive, but it demonstrates what it is that we can do. So this file is now in our Google Drive that's already connected to our Chat GPT. Now, it doesn't say I can use it with the chat, so I can't use it with the regular chat. I've got to use a deep research query. And you want to be aware that deep research queries are limited. So depending on what level of account you have a limited number of deep research queries. So you do want to make sure that you are sure that you want to use the information inside of this element in something that you're doing if you're going to use a deep research query. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to deep research. I'm going to look for a source. In this case, I'm going to turn on the Google Drive source. And I'm only going to use Google Drive source for this. And I'm not going to use the web as I normally is. So we're going to turn web search off. We're going to leave web search turned on, but we're also going to use our information here in Google Drive about for what we have on servant leadership. Now, this is not going to be an agent search, but it is going to be a multi-process document. So here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to give ChatGPT permission to use information that I already have to compile it into a report on the subject. We're going to make the subject servant leadership. And again, now we do know that that's already in our Google Drive. Now, you may not already know what's in your Google Drive. You may not even fully remember. You just know generally that there's something in there on that subject. And so you want to compile what you have along with what the AI can put together and put it into something that you will eventually compile into a report. And so we've got our source enabled, we've got the web enabled, we've got our deep research query enabled. We're then going to click enter and we're going to allow ChatGPT to interact. ChatGPT, because it's a deep research query, is going to come back with some questions. Now, it's actually not an agentic process, but ChatGPT does ask me if I wanted to create the PowerPoint file once it's compiled all the information. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And so we're going to go ahead and say yes. And what you're going to see is a multi-step process. You're going to see that ChatGPT is going to say that it's starting the research. Now, if this had been a agentic search, or if this has been an agent mode search, what you would see is that agent mode would show you the browser and what it's actually doing. Now, because it's doing the research only, it's not necessarily going to show you all the process. We're going to look at that process in the next part of this. You are seeing in real time the sources that is gathering, but you're not seeing the entire process in the compiling process. And that's really the difference between doing it with deep research and using agent mode. We're going to go about this using agent mode in the next session. Now, even though you can't watch the browser activity in real time, you can watch ChatGPT to see what's happening. You can click on this link that says sources. You're going to see this right hand side bar come open. And if you click on activity, you'll then see what's happening. And so ChatGPT will tell you in real time what it's doing. And for example, you'll see now that it's cross-referencing something that's in our Google Drive. That's the report that we had there. And it's bringing it into its activity. So we can turn this back off. So if you do want to see what's happening inside of the actual process, you can do that here. And again, you just click on this sources button and you click on activity and ChatGPT will tell you what it is doing. So what you're going to see is that you don't necessarily have to have agent mode operating in order to get agent activity. So ChatGPT is going to act as an agent because it's going to go through the process of creating our entire PowerPoint, even though technically it's not an agent mode. We're just going to ask it to do something agentic, which is to do the activity. And as we're progressing, if I open up the source area, there's more in Google Drive on servant leadership than just the one document. That was one document, but there's actually more. And so what ChatGPT is doing is it's referencing some of those other sources that we have in that drive on servant leadership. It's going to bring it into this project. Now, if I just look at the summary so far, it looks as if at this point, ChatGPT has looked at 17 sources and synthesizing it. A lot of those sources are in Google Docs. Some of those sources are in Google Drive, and then one is actually on a site. So it's actually bringing in that other information. So what ChatGPT is doing is it's bringing in all three sources and synthesizing them into the goal, which is our desire to produce a synthesized report. So what ChatGPT says is that it's compiled the report. And so we have a document here. And so what it's now saying is that it'll let us know when the presentation content is going to be ready. But it did not go through the process of producing the actual report. And that's really what we want. We want to be able to produce a PowerPoint presentation, and it did not go through that process. And that is an agent process. And so that's what we want to use the agent to be able to do. We're going to go ahead and download this report. We're going to download this to our hard drive. So let's undertake the same task this time. And even though we produced the report, what we wanted was a PowerPoint presentation, we're going to go ahead and go into agent mode and we're going to pick on our sources. So this time we're going to pick our Google Drive. We're going to keep the web search. And so we're just going to use those two sources. And so what we want to do is we want to do the same thing. And this time what we're going to ask ChatGPT to do is to produce a PowerPoint presentation based on our existing sources and based on what's available in its search on the web. We're also going to turn on Canva, and we're going to then allow for ChatGPT to go ahead and create this presentation, again, using some existing information, using its database, and then using our Canva. So what we're now going to do is we have our agent activity set up. You are going to have a disclosure here, and we're going to go ahead and go through with this. Now, again, this is going to be something that you want to verify before you go forward, and you don't want to do this blindly. You want to make sure you understand the risk. You want to make sure that you understand what you are disclosing. For the sake of this video, we're going to go forward with this. However, this is not a minor process. You want to understand all of the risks before you start this process and before you start giving up some of your data and allowing ChatGPT to interact with it. We're going to click that we understand it, and we're going to allow ChatGPT to start the process. Now, when it says that it's setting up your desktop, what it's doing is it's going to bring open its browser. And so it will actually show you all the entire process that it's going to be going through. Now, if you just want a summary of what it's doing, you can go to the ellipsis and you can just click on activity, and you can watch what it's doing almost as the same way that it did when we were looking at the process using deep research, or we can watch the desktop view. Now, this is going to take time to undertake, so this is not going to be a short process. And we're going to stop the video. We're not going to watch all of this in real time. And we're going to let the process work itself through. And when it's completed, we should have a PowerPoint presentation. And as you can see, with the other process, when we just used deep research, it said it was going to produce a deep research report as a PowerPoint presentation, but all it really produced was a deep research report. So we're going to stop the process here. We're going to pick it back up on the other side when it has completed the report. So now this agent process did finish the PowerPoint presentation. If we wanted to view it, we can view it here and we can scroll through it. It's not necessarily perfect. It does require some work, but we do have the guts of it. We can go ahead and download it. So in the agent process, we can use more than one connector. So in this case, we're going to go into agent mode. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at our sources. In this case, we're going to continue to use Canva. We're going to use our Google Drive, and this time we're also going to use SharePoint because we know we've got documents there. So we're going to now give the AI a task, and we can also upload files. So in this case, what we could do is we could upload the document that never did actually get created as a PowerPoint, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to ask the agent to take the information that we already have inside of our drives to create something different. Okay, so we're going to use more traditional prompt engineering. We're going to give it a role, and we're going to ask it to gather information that we already have, and then to supplement it with information that can be found in this database and on the web. And then we're going to ask it to put together a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to ask it to write a document and then to put it in Canvas. And we want it to be cited. So again, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to use the information that we have in our connectors, and we're also trying to allow the agent to do work for us. And so we can use traditional prompt engineering, but we're going to gather the information from our drives. We're going to gather the information from information that we've already put together. And we may not know exactly where it is. In the previous mini session, what we did was we knew where the data was. Now, you may just know that it's on a drive someplace, but you don't necessarily know exactly what it is. You may not know exactly where it is. What you want the AI to do is you want the AI to go and get that information. You want it to use its capability to go deep into your drives, to find out what you have, and to use it as the nucleus to form something new. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to ask the agent to get started. And this is, again, it's going to be a multi-step process, and it's not necessarily going to be instantaneous, but it's one that we can undertake. So the first thing that the agent is going to do is it's going to set up the desktop. It's going to say that it is thinking. And so what we want to do is we want to then write in out the document. Now, what we actually did was we said that we want the document to be put in Canvas. It says it's going to put the document in Canva. We're going to go ahead, we're going to stop this process. And we want to make sure. All right, so we want to specify that. So again, yes, we want to stop the process because we did see that it's going to try to put the whole document in Canva. And so we want to specify, well, maybe we should say that we want it in ChatGPT Canvas. And we'll then click enter. And so we'll have it to go back through the process and now undertake it. And we do want to complete the process. We just don't want it to put the document in Canva. And so that is what we will do. So what you'll notice here again is that the browser will start. If what you want to do is you want to watch the process to see what's happening, you can watch the activity here in this area. And we can turn this back off and use the desktop view. So we're not going to watch this entire process in full time or in real time. What we're going to do is we're going to let the process go ahead and play out. And we want the process to produce the document based on our activity. And so we're going to stop the process here and we'll pick it up from the completion of our document. And so the process is complete. And it did do as we asked. It did place the document in Canvas for us to go ahead and edit it. It did provide citations for us. And we can download, use the document, or we can edit it now inside of Canvas. And it's now going to remain inside of ChatGPT. Now, what if we were to use the agent only on our source? So in this case, you'll notice that the web is crossed out. And what we want to do is we want the agent to use all of our drive in one place. We've used SharePoint. Now, SharePoint is another name for everything that you have in a Microsoft 365 work account. And so if you have Microsoft 365 and that is your paid subscription, and maybe you're not paying the personal subscription, using a business subscription, that information is in what's called SharePoint. So everything that's there that's in your OneDrive, you can access that information from SharePoint by connecting to ChatGPT. What we're going to do is we're going to run an agent process, and we want to go and gather some information that we already know that we have, but we just may not know exactly where to find it. We know it's in SharePoint. And so we're going to ask ChatGPT to write a report based on some of that information. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to get something that we already have in our SharePoint. And what we want ChatGPT to do as an agent is to go retrieve that information and then to put together an outline based on it. We want ChatGPT to put it in Canvas so that we can return to that outline over and over again. What we want to do is we want to take this conversation and we want ChatGPT to add it to a new project. Now, this may not be something that ChatGPT can do yet, but we are going to ask ChatGPT to do it for us. So we're going to add on the instruction at the end, and we know that ChatGPT may not necessarily do it. We do have Canva included. So what we might do is we might ask for ChatGPT to get appropriate images from Canvas. Okay, so we have the guts of our outline, and what we're now going to do is we're going to start the agent process. And we're going to give ChatGPT the opportunity. It's going to say it is setting up our desktop. And then once it sets up the desktop, then it's going to show the process in the browser. And we want to confirm its instructions, and the instructions are correct. And we're going to go ahead and allow ChatGPT to go forward. Now, in this case, ChatGPT is not using its database. It's only using our drive. And so the agent process is going to work, but it's not going to use typically what you might have ChatGPT to do with an agent. We're using our own information. And what we could have done with Canva is we could have waited until the project ended. And then once the project ended, we could have asked Canva to then take all of the content and to create a cover for the book. And in future iterations, that's something that we can do, and that's something that you can do. You can get your project completed, and then you want ChatGPT to think through what the project is, and then to go to Canva and to create some sample covers and to have you to think through the sample covers. And so that's a good use of the agent process. And this is a process that technically now, what ChatGPT is saying in this case, in one point, was that it may require us to provide some input. But as of right now, we could walk away from this process and we could do something else if we needed to do it, whether that would be on our computer or we can do it away from our computer. So the document is complete. ChatGPT did put it in to Canvas and it did do what we asked. So it took conversations and content that we already had in a specific drive. And what it's done is it placed it in Canvas so that now we can use it in order to start writing or rewriting it and making it into what we want. So what the agent can do is it can gather the information that you know you have, put it in one place, and then make it so that you can then begin to make it. Now we could have asked the agent to start the process of rewriting it. We could have asked the agent to put it into a PowerPoint presentation. But in this case, all we really wanted was to gather our information and to make sure that information is one place where we can begin to work on it. And because it's now in the canvas, we can now use that canvas inside of ChatGPT and use all the other features in ChatGPT to bring it to life in the way that we want. Now, I was not able to automatically put it into a project, but that is something that we can do by opening this document in Canvas and then transferring that document into a project or into a separate conversation and then a project inside of ChatGPT. So the agent process can use multiple sources or can use one source, and it can skip the process of searching the web for you. You can focus on one particular element if you can get it connected to ChatGPT. So inside of agent mode, we have Canva, we have Dropbox, we have Gmail. So if you have information inside of your Gmail on a specific topic, you can get access to that information and you can bring it into a conversation. Now, what's important to note about this is that you can't connect more than one Gmail. So you can only connect one Gmail at this point. It could be in the future that you can connect multiple Gmails, but as of right now, you can only connect one Gmail to one conversation if we need to bring in information from a calendar. And if we want to document something that we have done, we can document something from all of the appointments that we have in our calendar. And obviously, you've seen that we can use Google Drive in this way also. Now, GitHub is for coding. HubSpot is for your CRM. So if you're using HubSpot for CRM, you can bring all of your contact information in here, but also you can use contact information here inside of your Outlook email. And then there's Box and then Linear. Notion is another connection that you can make. And so if we click on Notion and then we go through the connection process, you'll notice here that we can use Notion in chat, we can use it in deep research, we can use it in agent mode. So in this case, we're going to connect Notion. You're going to get this dialog and you're going to see you're going to continue to Notion. If you have more than one Notion account, you can choose the account here at this point. What you'll need to do at this point, if you are logged into your Notion account, is to continue and connect with your Notion account. So our Notion account is now connected. So we can use Notion in chat, and that's a difference between some of the connectors that we already have. So if you have information in Notion, you can use the chat in order to get access to it. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to connect our Notion and we're going to disconnect this from the chat. We're just going to chat with Notion. And we're now going to access some of the information inside of Notion. Right? So we're just going to ask for this to summarize our information. And so ChatGPT will go and look for information specifically on the topic from within our Notion account to determine if there's something that we can use from Notion. And we're going to give it a topic that is in our Notion account. And we're going to give ChatGPT the opportunity to retrieve that information and then to summarize it here. So as you can see, anything that we have in our Notion account can be brought into ChatGPT in this conversation to be used however we wish. So this is a document that we have in Notion that we created in the past, and we brought it into our ChatGPT conversation. And so you can go as deep as you want. So for example, we're being asked if we want specific examples. We're going to go ahead and state that we want specific examples, again, all from our Notion account. And we're doing this from within the chat. So we're not using deep research. We're not using the agent. All we're really using is the connected application of Notion. And we're going to ask for specifics from within that Notion document. Now we do have the follow-up questions, and so it will follow up with this information. So what we can do is we can continue to get information from Notion in order to create what we want. So we can ask for information to be brought in from another topic. So we can ask ChatGPT to manipulate it and then to synthesize it. We've asked ChatGPT to now go and get other information and to synthesize this into one specific document. So what it did was it found information that we have inside of our Notion account on the subject of memberships. It's going to combine it with what we already have, and then it's going to synthesize it in the way that we have asked. So now that we have this, again, we have all of this information within a conversation, and we can now use it however we would normally use information that we bring into ChatGPT. So the real point is that you have information that's locked away in drives. You have it locked away into platforms. And if that platform is Notion, if that platform is Microsoft OneDrive, if that platform is Dropbox, you can gather that information and you can bring it into a conversation in order to use it. And again, now because we're using this in the chat, we can combine it. So we can combine this with information that we have in Dropbox. We can combine it with information that we have in SharePoint. And so what we can then do is we can gather all the information that we have in these three places in order to create one specific document. We're now going to click enter, and we're then going to allow ChatGPT to go and draw from Dropbox, to draw from SharePoint, and to draw from Notion. Now we already know that we have something in Notion that's available. We may not know if we have anything specific inside of SharePoint. And as far as Dropbox, it may have to do a little deeper research, and we don't necessarily know. What we're doing is we're assuming, or we don't know, and we can explore drives without necessarily fully knowing if we have something there, but we're trying to draw information in. We don't know the answer. And what this does is it keeps us from having to search those drives. It keeps us from having to put all of these things together. We bring it into one cohesive document here inside of ChatGPT. So one thing that you may want to do when you actually start to use the information is you want to be able to go back to the original source file, or you want to be able to go to the folder to see if there's more. And so if you do that, we can tell ChatGPT to tell us where this information is. And we can also say that we want to have this information manipulated. In this case, we're going to say turn all of our own thoughts into a book outline, and then we're also going to ask ChatGPT to tell us where to find in the various drives. So ChatGPT will then read our Dropbox, it'll read our Notion, it'll read our SharePoint, and it's now summarized its information. And so what we want is a list of things and a list of places we can go. You may have to iterate if your instructions were not clear to the AI. In this case, our instructions were not clear to the AI. So we're going to go back to ChatGPT. We're going to let ChatGPT know that we don't necessarily want what it produced. What we want is for it to tell us where to find the information in our drives. And so again, we're iterating with ChatGPT. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow ChatGPT to give us the place where we can find it. And so we are going to have to be a little more specific with ChatGPT. And it is asking for a reference map, and that is a good idea. And so we are going to say yes to that with ChatGPT. And this is actually what we want. We want to know where within each drive the ChatGPT went to get the information. Again, so that if we've got to verify something, we know now where we can find it in the drive. And we didn't know at the start where this information was. And this is where this is going to be helpful to us because now, yes, we did get ChatGPT to give us information from those drives. But now what we have is we have the ability to go to those drives in case something doesn't necessarily fit or doesn't necessarily look right. We can now go to our drives to look at it exactly to see what it is. And again, now the AI is not going to be perfect. And it's not going to interpret our information perfectly, and it's not going to place it inside of our outline perfectly. But we do have a backup now. We have our own way of referencing our own information in order to use it in the way that we want. Okay, so now we can go back to the outline and we can ask for ChatGPT to now give us what we want. Because now what we do is we have a complete reference. We know within our drives where the information is. And what we wanted from our information is to give us a sentence outline that we can now use. And so we're using all of our own information to create something new. But ChatGPT is going to continue to do follow-up questions. And what you'll notice here in this case, it's actually doing this without having us having this enabled. Typically, you will need to have this button enabled, show follow-up suggestions in the chat. But we don't even have this enabled, and ChatGPT is following up with additional questions. So we're going to ask ChatGPT to continue the process. So you can use information from your drives in order to construct something and to start work to put something into another format. You don't have to know where everything is in your drives. All you really have to do is get your drives connected to ChatGPT so that you can do it. So what you've now seen is how to use your connectors with the agent, how to use your connectors in the chat, and how to use your connectors with deep research. And understanding which way to use any one of those three tools depends on how ChatGPT connects to the individual connector you want to use. But when in doubt, the best thing to do is to bring it into a chat first and then go back and look at your sources. You can look at your connections. You can see how the connectors are connected to choose the tool that you want. Three tools again are the chat, deep research, or agent mode. Okay, so with that, thanks and have a great day.